Beware of the blob, it creeps and leaps and glides and slides across the floor, right through the door and all around the wall. A splotch, a blotch, be careful of the blob.
Oh crap, it's Wednesday, and I don't have a video made. That's a problem. Ugh. God, that alarm is really, really annoying. Hey, that reminds me. You know it'd be a good movie to talk about today. The Blob. Now, The Blob is a staple of 1950s monster movies, and we're not going to talk about that version, the version with Steve McQueen. We're going to talk about the 80s version. So, in the 80s, there was sort of this movement to remake some old 50s monster movies. Invaders from Mars got remade, and The Thing got remade, and The Fly got remade. And sort of the first wave of like these kind of remakes of old classic movies. Now, whereas today that goes on constantly because of managing product synergy and brand recognition. Back then it was more the fact that these directors were genuine fans of the original movies and kind of wanted to tip their hat to something that actually got them into the business. Now, The Blob doesn't really get talked about as much as the movies that I had already mentioned. And I think it's because it didn't have somebody like Cronenberg working on it. It was just Frank Darabont and Chuck Russell. Yes, that is the same Frank Darabont that went on to do The Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, The Majestic, The Mist, and who kickstarted the Walking Dead TV show before AMC kicked him off the job. It's really hard to predict as far as like what characters are going to live or going to die, and it's something Darabont handled incredibly well in The Mist, in that things are done to make you feel like nobody is safe. The sort of stereotypical always safe characters are dispatched in like the worst possible ways. Now what that does is it actually gives you a real sense of suspense, because if the safe characters are taken out, then everybody's fair game, and you're kind of on edge every time the Blob attacks our characters, because you don't necessarily know who's going to live and who's going to die. This movie is a phenomenal way of boasting like the coolest 80s gooey prosthetic, drippy, nasty special effects. The Blob is awesome. So many great kills that once you see them, they'll stick with you for a long time. It's the perfect mix of making you want to cheer for how amazingly fantastic the effects are, and also kind of making you incredibly like queasy and maybe look away from the screen a little bit, because some of these kills are just like, oh, so gross. I dare you to feel safe around sinks after you watch this movie. I dare you. I mean, look at this. Would you want to go near a sink ever again? 8-year-old Zach didn't. I still don't. I hate sinks. I hate them. The cast is really top-notch. We have Darabont, regular Jeffrey DeMunn in here. I guess foreshadowing the fact that they'd be working together a lot. Jeffrey DeMunn pops up in this, and Shawnee Smith, who later became a lot more famous playing Amanda in the Saw movies. She's in here, and she turns in great work. All the cast is really good. A lot of the characters are really likable and really down to earth. If there's anything that I think is a major fault against the movie, it's that in the original, the Blob had no origin. It just came from outer space, blah, 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 blah. In the new one, it's like a creation of science. It's a bacteria that grew to gigantic lengths in outer space. And that's okay, I can buy that, I guess. But then the government comes, and it slows down a lot in the, right around that point. The movie kind of grinds to a dead halt because we follow into this old 80s stereotype of the government's behind it. So it turns into sort of like an X-Files episode for 20 minutes, and it feels like you're watching it for 6 hours as the military are bad guys and do bad things. And the finale more than makes up for it. The level of Blob versus Town greatness at the end is way more than they would have ever dreamed of in the 50s. So overall, I mean, it's not a classic necessarily. It's not nowhere near as classic as The Thing or Cronenberg's The Fly. I mean, not even in the same ballpark as those movies. But neither of those movies have this scene in them.